Hello everyone, Zura's Workshop here. We're back to spotlight the factions remaining from the previous video. If you're interested about the rules, I recommend you to see the first faction video of my channel, but with that out of the way, let's get into our first faction for today. NOLDOR are a pretty intricate faction to play, similarly to their Sylvan cousins. The classic NOLDOR strategy is focused on making the most out of your discard pile while simultaneously taking advantage of effects that discard cards from your hand to trigger various effects. They have a set of allies that get a buff depending on what card is on the top of your discard pile, and maybe more importantly, there are two cards common in NOLDOR decks that can only be played from the discard pile. Those cards being Elven Light, which draws you a card and comes back to your hand from discard, and Lords of Eldar, which buffs all of your NOLDOR characters on the field, and then goes to the bottom of your deck. Lords of the Eldar is a key card for the deck, being the only global buff targeting NOLDOR specifically. They're the best suited to utilize cards like Evening Star that triggers an extra time for each copy in the discard pile, essentially allowing you to discard the first and maybe the second copy to make a good use of the next. In this case, the third Evening Star could put up to 6 progress split into 3 instances, allowing you to immediately take control of locations in the staging area. You will discard cards for benefits like resources, attack bonuses, healing characters, or paying additional costs on characters like Guardian or Rivendell. And then you will be able to make use of your discard pile. They need a lot of card draw to put their shenanigans off, so heroes like Arestor, who draws you 3 extra cards and fuels your discard, or Galdor, allowing you to refill your hand once, will be almost necessary for the deck to function. They're a very strong, well-developed faction, with plenty of options, none of which feel mandatory to include. It's insanely easy to make bad plays with NOLDOR though, with all the discard choices and management that needs to be made, making the deck less accessible to beginners. Let me start off this one by saying that a ranger deck is not a thing. There are various cards to reference rangers, but none of them entice you to play a deck full of them. They're just one of the pieces to the deck. Rangers are, however, pretty connected to traps, which are a real faction we're talking about here, which is weird as traps are the only trait deck where the trait in question is not one belonging to allies but rather attachments. All of the traps fit into lore and tactics, with majority staying lore. All except one of the lore traps function similarly. You play them into the staging area without attaching them to any of the enemies. After you reveal an enemy, they fall into the trap. It gets attached to them and they suffer a debuff, such as getting minus to attack and defense, having to suffer 2 damage at the end of each round, or getting minus to threat and skipping engagement checks, making the enemy that has fallen into ranger spikes almost useless. This archetype is what it is because of Damrod Hero, who is the sole reason trap decks really exist in their current form. He grants you both resource acceleration and card draw, 2 of the most important effects in the game, reducing the cost of the first trap you play each round and drawing you a card every time an enemy falls into a trap. The tactics traps are also interesting inclusions as they are a bit less random, triggering after you engage an enemy, making them easier to control in multiplayer. Trap decks are one of the most fun ones out there, but some scenarios render them completely useless, such as sailing quests. Be aware that they will not work everywhere due to immune enemies and such, but when they do work, they're unique and powerful spin on taking care of combat duties. HARAD cannot exactly be called a fully fledged deck type, but it's a solid foundation that you can build various decks upon. There are only 6 HARAD cards in the game, 5 allies and a hero that also has a dedicated attachment. The hero, Kaliel, helps you with smoothing your resources when you pay for HARAD allies, which you will need because 3 most important HARAD allies all cost 5 and come from 3 different spheres. They are also all unique, so his second ability comes in handy to get rid of extra copies for profit. HARAD is about getting your 3 elite unique allies, 2 of which are some of the best allies in the game, with Ferial being able to control the encounter deck to an extent few cards can match. To help you a little with getting those 3 giants out, you have Saw-Droned Refugee, which isn't exactly a golden standard in resource acceleration, and Kaliel's Tribesmen, who are surprisingly good for bringing Juber's defense a bit higher. A pretty useful card in the deck is Kaliel's Hairdress, getting you a global willpower HARAD boost and allowing you to recycle your discarded HARAD cards. In order to get the most out of this archetype, you need solid resource generation at cheat cards like the Very Good Tale or Captain's Wisdom. After you play your 3 main allies, you have solid attacking, defense and questing covered, and you can build from here, probably including some general utility allies. You can choose various heroes to go in the deck, and because Kaliel is very flexible and can fit in multiple roles, you can go for some staples like Baragond, Grima, Arwen, Beravor. And not be wrong, it's a deck for you if you have limited budget and want to just grab a few packs, or you want a smaller archetype where you can build upon a small subset of cards in various directions you want. Hobbit decks can go in various directions, but they have one thing in common: low threat. Hobbit heroes start with low threat and benefit from staying here. For example, Pippin and Sam get bonuses for engaging an enemy with threat greater than yours, for example. And if you control only Hobbit heroes, you can use the Shirefolk for free reduction of 4 threat. Aside from the classic strategy that depends on engaging enemies with higher threat to use bonuses on cards like Dagger of Westerness or Taste It Again, you can also go in pipe direction. Hobbits do have an affinity for pipes, with Hobbit pipe being a very powerful draw engine in the right deck. You can use Bilbo to find the pipes, play reducing threat events, draw a ton of cards, and then you can play your finishers with Smoke and Think, an absurd economy event. A Hobbit strategy depending on allies is also viable, with Tom Cotton boosting Hobbit allies entering play, and the Red Book of Westmarch being a massive boost to your questing army. While different hero lineups are viable, when it comes to allies they have some very key units. Rosie Cotton is an all-star in the deck, as she can help you in any given task with perfect information, because she can adjust willpower after revealing the cards or defense after revealing the shadow effect. Gaffer Gamgee is also pretty absurd, and with some economy on your side, he works as a feint that you can play every single round in correct deck. Hobbits are very strong but vulnerable to low engagement enemies. It's a pretty flavorful faction in which gameplay stays close to the lore. BEORNINGS are a very small faction with only one worthwhile synergy, and building a whole deck on it is probably madness, but you can insert what I call a BEORNING package into many decks. BEORNING Skin Changer, the centerpiece of the synergy, allows you to discard himself to put any other BEORNING ally into play from your discard or hand. This is action advantage as you can use it after he was exhausted. It's resource acceleration because you can bring in even 6 cost ally saving 4 resources, but also it is card advantage because he can get it from your discard. It's a very powerful swing to get ally Beorn into play, and one of the best tempo plays that Tactics has to offer in general. You can also treat them as toolbox piece and bring in Beorning Guardian if you need location control, or Giant Bear when you need more action advantage this round. They have one more card, Beorn's Rage, but it's usually better utilized with Beorning heroes that start in play, like Grimbeorn the Old, and those heroes do not really have any faction synergy whatsoever. So pick a few Beorning cards to fill your deck that's lacking some combat capabilities and could use a tempo swing with Sudden Beorn coming into play. Dale faction might seem less enticing to play than some well-known factions like Gondor, but funnily enough, Dale is one of the most complete factions in the game. It's a deck which focuses on attachments on your characters. They use Brand Son of Bane to draw cards every time you play an attachment on a Dale character without attachments, almost single-handedly solving the issue of drawing cards if you can get enough attachments early on. And the same brand also gives all Dale characters with attachments a global willpower boost, even if that was all synergy they had. I believe that would be solid, but no, there's also Bard Son of Brand that gives you access to items from all 4 spheres, so you can get all the cheap attachments from all spheres on your allies. But also, he gives you the attachments back after an ally dies with them, meaning he solves the main issue with attachments on allies. That being, after they die with attachment on them, you lost 2 cards and more tempo than playing another ally. But with Bard, you can actually get ahead because you can play those attachments on a new ally without them and draw cards using Brand. To make sure you can play Dale allies from all 4 spheres, you can use King of Dale, which not only is getting rid of the sphere match, but he is also reducing the cost of the ally by the number of attachments on the hero with King on Dale attached, which is equivalent to around 2 resources a round in early game, so it's Steward of Gondor level, and probably around 4 resources in the late game, which is just ridiculous. And if those 2 or 4 resources are not enough for you yet, You can play Traffic from Dale, getting around million resources in the late game because it triggers of every character with attachment. Quick side note, Traffic from Dale is the reason I'm never getting over the We Are Not Idle errata. This card gives you around 6 or 7 resources easy with no strings attached. And We Are Not Idle usually had to exhaust all of your dwarf allies to get this amount. So I have no idea why FFG decided to make dwarves borderline unplayable for me and then print Traffic from Dale. It's just stupidly strong. Dale are not only borderline overpowered, but they are also stupidly fun with all the attachment cycling you can be doing with Brand and Long Lake Trader. I definitely recommend this deck if you want a taste of what real power looks like. Finishing off today's video, Woodmen are another one of the attachment-centric decks. And this time, the attachments are going on locations. They use Haldan, the main card of the archetype, to draw cards for all attachments on a location leaving play. Examples of attachments you will play on locations are Woodman's Clearing that reduces your threat, Thror's Key, getting rid of all location effects, or Ancient Madam to draw 3 cards. Haldan also has synergy with guarded attachments, as they also count for abilities of Woodmen. When it comes to the allies, Mirkwood Hunter gets cheap really fast, Forest Road Traveler is a pretty valuable 2-drop, and Mirkwood Explorer helps you explore locations, which is what you will want to be doing. It's a very quest-oriented deck, pretty much locked in lore and spirit combination, meaning combat will be pretty harsh for you aside for Haldan's solid 3 attack. So playing multiplayer is probably smart, so other players can take care of combat. They combine pretty well with scouts, having the same overall goal of exploring locations, meaning heroes like Idraen are a solid inclusion in the Woodman strategy. It's not an incredibly strong deck, but for multiplayer it fits the supporting role real well. Thank you for staying so far. If you have enjoyed the video and haven't watched part 1, I encourage you to do so. I will be back soon with another video, so stay safe, leave your feedback, and I will see you guys in the next one.